Processor and microcontroller. In the last few lectures, we had gone through the internal architecture of the 8085 microprocessor. We went through the block diagram and the different components of the processor. Now, in this lecture and a couple of coming lectures, what we'll do is we'll go through the pins, different pins of the 8085 processor chip. Okay. Lecture. The 8085 is a 40 pin DIP. DIP stands for dual inline package. Okay, what that means is that this is the structure of the 8085 processor chip, actual physical chip. It will have 20 pins in one side and 20 pins on the other side. So all these pins have certain functions, and this is a grouping of the different pins based on their functionalities. For example, here we have the serial input output ports. Okay, here we have our power line and ground, and also the clock. Okay, similarly we have a group of interrupts or externally initiated signals, right? Along with that, we have acknowledgements for the same signals. We have the address bus and the address and data bus, and then we have the control and status signals. Then there is the outputs to the peripherals, clock and reset. So what we will do next is we will group some of these pins together, and some of the pins we will see individually, but the groupings are not exactly this. There will be a slight variation, but the grouping will be a logical one depending on the function and some concepts. Okay, here is the clock pins. So first of all, the pins are number 1 and 2, that is X1 and X2. Also there is number 37, that is clock out, right? So X1, X2 and clock out. So I hope you remember that initially I had mentioned that this processor works with a 3 megahertz clock, right, or clock frequency. What does that mean? It means to synchronize the internal functioning of the processor and also synchronizing the peripherals of the processor, it requires a clock. It is depending on the number of clock cycles, the functions of the processor and even the execution of the instructions are synchronized. For that we require, or the processor requires, a clock. And if you remember, when we went through the internal architecture, there was one block called as timing and control unit. That timing part of that unit takes in these two, X1 and X2. So basically how it is done is, we have our 8085 processor, we have a pin number 1 and 2, right? What we do is we connect a crystal, right, to X1 and X2. This is a crystal, probably some quartz or something like that. So what the processor or the timing unit of the processor does, it uses this crystal as a reference for creating a clock frequency, a continuous clock frequency or continuous pulse, sine wave, or a continuous square wave of a certain frequency. This is used as a reference. This reference is given to the 1 and 2 pins, and once the 8085 processor creates its own clock, then it not only needs to synchronize its internal functioning, it requires to synchronize the peripheral devices also. Therefore it gives clock out, and it uses the pin number 37 for that. So whatever peripherals are there, it will be it's the clock of the different peripherals will be connected to this pin. Okay, that is the significance of the clock pins. Pin number 36, which is a reset in, and pin number 3 which is a reset out. Okay, so we have this is reset in and reset out. Okay, so obviously from the name itself you can identify the purpose of this. So this is used to reset the microprocessor. Okay, the 8085 microprocessor. So how does this reset? And one thing is that you can see the bar above the pin. It means that it is a active low pin. That is, what does active low means? You should know this by now. Active low means to enable that pin, you have to give a low or a 0 at that pin. The other thing is that this reset in signal, reset in pulse, or whatever low signal you are giving, it should be present for 3 clock cycles or more. That is, once you give a low input to the reset in pin, for the processor to consider it as a signal for resetting the processor, it should be present for 3 clock cycles or more. Okay, and what happens when you reset? All the registers and stack and memory and things like that will be reset. Okay, now when it comes to reset out, once the processor is reset, the peripherals also have to be reset. For that we use the reset out pin. Like we use the clock out pin from the processor to synchronize the peripheral devices, we can use the reset out pin to synchronize the or reset the peripheral devices when this processor is being reset. Okay, so this is for resetting peripherals. Okay, this doesn't have a concept of active low or active high. Whenever reset is going low, this becomes high. This becomes high. High whenever reset in is low. Okay, whenever we are trying to reset this reset in, or the processor using the reset in, this will go high, and only once you change the value at reset in from 0 to 1, this value will go from 1 to 0. Okay, for example, like if you want to see, we can say like we have our reset in and we have our reset, right? We have our reset in and we have our reset out. Okay, so suppose this value is going like 1 and it goes to 0 for some time, then this will be 0 for this time, and once it goes to 0, it will go to 1, and when it goes back or somewhere in between, it will go back to 0, like that. So if this duration is more than 3 clock cycles, the processor will be reset. That is the idea. So pin number 5 and pin number 4. So let's see what they are. Pin number 5 and pin number 4. So basically they are let's write here SID and SOD. So obviously they are serial communication pins, and so this is I will stand for what? It will stand for input, O stands for output. So this is serial input data, this is serial output data. Okay, so we have serial input data and serial output data, right? Communication means we are sending the bits one by one, 1 0 0 1, however it's, that is at one time we are sending one bit at a time. So 1 bit at a time. This stands for both. Same here, right? Same here. The other thing is that for both, the MSB of the accumulator is used. That is, whether you want to receive some data, that is, you want some input some data to the processor, or you want to output some data from the processor, some bits from the processor for the serial communication, we are using the MSB, most significant bit of the accumulator, right? So what do we do? If you want to read some data, you go and check the MSB of the accumulator, and whatever data is there, you use that. When you want to send some data, you put whatever bit you want to send into the MSB of the accumulator, and you do something. What do? You use RIM instruction. What is RIM? Read, interrupt, mask. This is an instruction, RIM instruction. We'll go through them in detail later. Okay. That is, once we use read, interrupt, mask, RIM instruction, whatever is there in this SID port, it will be taken and will be put into the MSB of the accumulator. Then the processor can use that bit as the programmer wishes. Similarly, here we use SIM instruction. And what does SIM stands for? Set, interrupt, mask. The processor wants to output some data using the serial port, it will first put that data into the MSB of the accumulator, and then it will use the SIM instruction, set interrupt mask instruction, and then whatever data is there at the accumulator, it will be MSB of the accumulator, it will be passed as the output from SOD pin. That is how serial communication works. Which is the interrupt pins. They are number 6 to 11, right? 6 to 11. So here we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 pins. So if you see here, 5 of them are inputs coming into the processor and 1 is output. INTA bar is output. So let's see them. We'll just put the pin numbers here. So we have pin number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Okay, so the pin is 6 pin is trap. It is named trap. Okay, it is named as trap. So one concept that you should know is the concept of maskable or non-maskable. So maskable means we can use an instruction or we can use a setting such that we can give or we can inform the processor that, okay, suppose if this interrupt comes, don't entertain it for some time or don't entertain it, right? That means we are masking the interrupt. We are masking the interrupt means we are not entertaining that interrupt for the time being. So interrupts come in two ways when as far as maskability is concerned, maskable and non-maskable. So if an interrupt is maskable, it means that if we have the provision to not entertain that interrupt, and if an interrupt is non-maskable means you don't have a provision to not entertain the interrupt. You have to entertain the interrupt no matter what. So that is, whenever an interrupt comes, if it is non-maskable, you have to entertain it, you have to execute it. Okay, and it so happens that trap is a non-maskable interrupt. Okay, the next concept that you should know is the concept of vectored or non-vectored. So again, interrupts come in two fashion when it comes to this concept, vectored or non-vectored. Vectored means that a pre-assigned memory location will be there in the memory. A pre-assigned address will be there in the memory to which the processor will jump to whenever a certain interrupt is acknowledged or interrupt is coming and it is being executed. That is, the interrupt service routine, ISR, will be, it has to be stored somewhere, right? And for a vectored interrupt, the processor will know, it will know where that interrupt service routine is in the memory. So if the processor decides to entertain an interrupt and entertain a vectored interrupt, then it can directly jump to that interrupt service routine. So it because it knows where that interrupt service routine is starting from. That is the concept of vectored and non-vectored. So if a interrupt is non-vectored, what does it mean? It means the processor doesn't know where the interrupt service routine is, and that vector address or the memory location where the interrupt service routine is, it has to be provided by the peripheral which is requesting for interrupt. Okay, it so happens that trap is a vectored interrupt. Okay, and the vector address is where the interrupt service routine is beginning, and for trap it is 0024H. Okay, so the next interrupt is RST 7.5. It is a maskable interrupt. It is a vectored interrupt, and its vector address is 003CH. The next one is RST 6.5. Again, it is a maskable interrupt. It is a vectored interrupt, and it has a vector address of 0034H. The next one, RST 5.5, is a maskable vectored interrupt with a vector address 0028H. Sorry, 2CH. Okay. So if you look at here, these three, RST 5.5 to 7.5, are very similar. The only difference, that is, they are all maskable when vectored interrupts. Only difference being the vector address. Trap is a non-maskable vectored interrupt. The next one is INTR. Right. INTR is a maskable non-vectored interrupt. And so where will the processor get the vector address from? The peripheral has to provide, right? Because it's a non-vectored interrupt, the peripheral, whichever is requesting the interrupt, has to provide the vector address. Pin number 11 is INTA. It is interrupt acknowledge. Interrupt acknowledge. That means, suppose a peripheral device is requesting an interrupt, and the processor decides for whatever reason that it will entertain the interrupt. And once the processor decides to entertain the interrupt, it has to let the device know that, okay, I am entertaining your interrupt, and let's go ahead with whatever you want to do, right? So basically, when does a peripheral use an interrupt? It uses an interrupt whenever it wants to communicate with the processor. It wants to do some communication or data transfer or something like that, right? So if the processor, whenever an interrupt comes and the processor decides to entertain that interrupt, what it will do is it will send back the interrupt acknowledge. That's why all the other pins related to interrupts are inputs. Only INTA bar is an output. And why is it a bar? Because it is an active low signal. That is, when the processor accepts an interrupt, it changes this line from 1 to 0, right? This is an output, or everything else is input. Okay, so this is about interrupts. And in the next lecture, we'll continue with the remaining pins. One more thing, there is this concept of priority of interrupts, and this is the increasing order of priority. And what does priority means? That is, when two or more interrupts are being requested at the same time, depending on the priority, either one of them will be entertained. That is the concept of priority, and this is the increasing order of priority. So trap is the highest priority interrupt which is non-maskable and vectored. That is, whenever trap is there, no matter what is the condition or situation of the processor, that interrupt has to be executed. Usually it is used for critical system interrupts like a power failure or overheating or something like that. So I'll wind up this session. In the next session, we will continue with the remaining pins. Thank you.